Hello, I'm Sheriff Jason Mikesell with the Teller County Sheriff's Office. Today I'm with the Community Resilience Forum. So what I'd like to do is to tell you thank you for coming and viewing this, and we'd like to engage our community and help our community with some resilience facts from a panel of experts that are going to be able to help us. So today I'd like to introduce James Mclaughlin. He's the director of the Community Paramedicine. James, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm with Ute Pass Regional Health Service District, and as the sheriff said, I'm with the Community Paramedic Program. I'm also under that auspice is the MAP program, our Mental Health Assessment Program. We respond to persons in behavioral crisis.
Great. The second panel member I'd like to introduce is Derien Latimer. He's the Educational Support Plan Virtual Schools. Darlyn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me here. Again, my name is Derien, and I'm currently the principal at Madison Elementary School in Colorado Springs School District 11. I've been serving in education, public education, for about 20 years, and done a little bit of everything from being a special ed aide to a classroom teacher, as well as an assistant principal and a principal. I also have 4 children. 3 of them are school age. So when I talk a little bit later, we'll be talking about doing school at home. So I'm getting a lot of experience in that right now. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kathy Friel, who is a mental health and mindfulness. Kathy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you also for having me here today. My name is Dr. Kathy Friel. I am here representing Dragonfly Retreats and Veteran Support. I am going to be talking today on relaxation and stress, mindfulness, depression, that kind of issue. And I'm also going to be talking about family relationships and how to keep each other happy during these times of very close quarters.
Thank you. The next is Darlyn Baker. You're speaking today about substance abuse disorders.
Yes, I'm Darlyn Baker. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I am representing Teller County Public Health and Environment as a volunteer for their ESF8 services, as well as I'm contracted with Viewpoint Psychotherapy Services. I'm going to be talking about substance use. I have been a nurse for over 33 years and a public health nurse in the past. So.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Ann Rush Crampton with Resiliency Skills.
Hi, I'm Ann Rush, and I'm with Status Code 4. What we're going to be talking about today is resiliency skills and what folks can do at home to help weather the storm that we're experiencing right now.
Thank you. Family finances, we'll be talking to from Lee Taylor. Lee, can you tell us a little bit?
Yes, I've lived in Teller County for 18 years. I'm going to be specifically covering the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. And there's a little bit of something in there for everybody, and I'm going to lay some of that out so you know what's coming as far as assistance.
Spiritual support, Pastor Scott Park.
Thank you, Sheriff. My name is Scott, and as one of the pastors at Impact Christian Church in Woodland Park, I'm here to represent all the pastors. I think we have roughly 30 churches in Teller County, and just on behalf of them, want to address anything along the line of spiritual things or from God's Word.
Our last but not least, Dawn Angel with the Teller County Office of Emergency Management. Dawn, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Welcome. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm the Director of Emergency Management for Teller County, and kind of the tasking I have is to run the entire show for our COVID action and response and coordinate the groups as they move forward. They do the work, I just push the paper.
Thank you all for coming today. I'd like to let the audience know that this is a virtual audience. There are no live audience members at this time. If you look around us, we're actually 6 foot apart. We are currently working with the state mandate. We have 8 people involved with this. It is below the 10 persons that are required to stay under the law. So right now, what I'd like to do is turn it over to James Mclaughlin to talk about the medical and mental health updates.
Thank you, sir. So my task here is to talk a little bit about the medical response and how we as a medical team are tackling this unique and challenging time, and then a little bit about the behavioral health piece. So for the medical aspect, what I want to tell you first and foremost is we have our maximum staffing available every single day. And thanks to the support from our IC, Incident Command Team, and Don Angelitis and his team, we have been meeting for over a month now, every morning, and having discussions about where we anticipate the need is going to be and what the current flow and need is, and so that we can be 2 or 3 steps ahead of what's coming next. So we can make sure that we have the ambulance resources and the dispatch resources necessary to address those needs. So what we're doing right now is we are still responding to calls like you would in a standard different time. But we're trying to be mindful of the fact that our providers are being potentially exposed to, the COVID virus. And so we have taken the steps of making sure that all of our providers are well-educated and well-trained in the application of personal protective equipment, and that's the mask and the goggles and the gowns and all the extra stuff that you see. And then anytime we're dispatched to a call that could be related to COVID, then we're going to take the time to get into that gear. But at the same time, we also want to minimize the exposure because we're running these calls on a regular basis. We want to minimize the exposure that we put off on other folks. So we want to be mindful of the fact that we don't want to bring anything into your home. So we're using social distancing and the social distancing guidelines to make sure that when we respond to your home, that we're responding in a safe manner. One of the tools that we use to do that is WhatsApp. And I think most of us here are familiar with WhatsApp. It's a social media app. And if you don't know, you can go to the tellercovid.com website, and you can actually look at the WhatsApp or go to the WhatsApp section, and you can download WhatsApp onto your personal device. We ask that you put it on your phone or iPad, and our providers are going to make early contact with you that way to prepare you for our arrival, to make sure that we can respond to your home in the safest manner possible and minimize your exposure to us. And that's really important for us. And then the next thing that we're doing is we know that there's been a national shortage on some of the medications that are critical for the COVID-19 fight. And so we have worked again with the IC team to really make sure that we've got the medications that we need. Now, we're not hoarding, because that wouldn't be appropriate and that wouldn't be fair and that wouldn't be being a good global partner. But we are using the information that we have and the modeling that we have to determine the amount of medication that we need and making sure that we have those medications readily available when they're anticipated to be needed. So from the medical side, those are the steps that we're taking. From the behavioral health side, we are the front line, last line of defense for behavioral health crisis. And what we're talking about is behavioral health crisis when you're actively suicidal, when you have severe debilitating depression to the point where it is causing an immediate danger to yourself or others. We're the agency that you call. And it's as simple as just calling 911 and letting them know. So if you're in immediate crisis, you're severely disabled due to mental illness, or you're having suicidal or homicidal thoughts, then you can immediately reach out to 911, and we will send out one of our behavioral health professionals. And we don't send out, generally speaking, we don't send out an ambulance and a fire engine and a bunch of law enforcement officers. It is one specially trained community paramedic who has a greater understanding of behavioral crisis, and generally speaking, 1 or 2 law enforcement officers who are going to be there just to support us early on in the process. And then we're going to actively listen to you, try and understand to the best of our ability what you're facing at that moment. And then we're not the content experts here. We're a partner in your health. And so we're going to come alongside you. We're going to listen to what you're saying. And then together, you and I, or you and one of my teammates, are going to come up with a plan to make sure that you can stay safe, to get you the help and the services that you need. And I want everyone to know that we know this too shall pass. This time in our history is going to be but a dot on the rest of time. But for some folks, this is a really challenging time. And I want them to know that we're here for you and that we're going to listen in a non-judgmental way. And we're going to open our hearts to make sure that we understand what you're telling us and what you're asking for. And then together, because we don't find the solutions alone, together, you and I, or you and my teammate, are going to find the solution and get you the help that you need. So, and what I promise you is, we're not going to abandon you. We're not going to leave you until we find a solution together. Because what's really important is making sure that we make that connection with you and that we get you set up with the services that you need. So I implore anybody that is at the point where they feel like they're imminently in danger, please reach out, call 911 now, and we'll get you the help that you need. And I'm going to be very personal here. This is a very personal thing for me, because I've worked on the ambulance for years, and what I can't endure anymore, what I don't want to see anymore, is what happens when people don't reach out for help. I don't want to see one more completed suicide in our community, because that is a failure for our entire community. And it doesn't need to happen anymore. The resources are here. And what I hope you hear today is, don't wait till you get to that point where you have to call. You know, if you're not there yet, utilize the rest of this team, because we're all here working collaboratively together to make sure that you have the resources that you need. But if you've already gotten to the point where you're in despair and you feel like you're going to take your own life, then what I want you to do is reach out and call 911, and we will be there for you. And you and I, or my teammate and you, will get through this together. I promise you that.
Thank you, James. You know, and at the Sheriff's Office, we've partnered with James and his crew. So when those calls come in, we transfer them to James. And James, I really appreciate all you do for that. I think this is a much better solution than what we've had in the past, as I was a young deputy, to be able to give them to somebody that cares and that will work through them through the issues. Thank you. Next, I'd like to talk to our educational support plan, Derien Latimer.
All right. Thank you again for having me. You know, I know many of you out there, or if you're listening today, are embarking on a new journey around education. Many of us for the first time, and that includes myself and many of the staff that I'm privileged to work with. We're engaging in virtual education or online education for the first time. So just want to talk about that a little bit and possibly provide you some support and some help. There's two specific things that I want to talk about today. Just looking at how now the schoolhouse is now in your home. The schoolhouse is your house now. So how do you go about setting the right tone, setting the right environment for doing school at home? The other thing I want to talk about, and this is a question that many of you have asked, is what in the world are my kids going to do now? So just talking about finding resources and using some of those resources that are out there. So we'll touch on those just real briefly. As we look at doing school in your home, you know, I think the first thing that I'd like to point out to you is you've got to communicate with your kids about what's going on. What I encourage you to do is use language such as this, school is not out. School is not over. It's not summertime yet. We're just doing school different. So I think the first thing in setting the tone is make sure that your students at home, your kids know that we're still doing school. They are still engaging in learning. So I think the more you say that, the more that they begin to internalize that. And if you haven't done that yet, it's not too late. I know we're a couple of weeks into this, but start today, start tonight, and let your kids know, hey, tomorrow we're doing school at this time. So I think your words are much more powerful than you think sometimes. So sit them down, have that conversation even today if you haven't had a chance to get started yet. I think it's very important, and I'm sure a lot of the other panel members will talk about this, just the routines that you keep in the morning and in the evening, I think are crucial. I would encourage you to keep your routines as close to normal as possible. So what do we mean by that? If your kids have a bedtime, they still need to have a bedtime. Now, at my house, I haven't made it exactly the traditional, school week bedtime, but, my kids still have a bedtime. I give them a little extra time, but at some point we are going to bed during the week. We also have a wake time. That's just as important. There's a time that we have to get up. We're not sleeping all day. I would encourage you when your kids get up, have them get dressed, have them eat breakfast. Again, just stay as close to that routine that they would have had during a normal school day or a normal school week. So, I think that AM and PM routine are very, very important. As you begin to put in place times of day that you're going to work and those school time routines, because this is not traditional school, in-person learning, I think it's okay to tell your kids that they get part of the day. So one of the things that I've said with my kids at home is, if you work for 2 hours, or we engage in schoolwork for 3 hours, or you finish this task that your teachers have given you, then you get to have the rest of the day, or you get this part of the day. I think, it's kind of a negotiation. And I found that my kids and many of my staff and other parents that I've talked to have found success with that. Go ahead in that conversation that you have with them tonight. All right, you guys are going to work for 3 hours. And if you do that, the rest of the day is yours, or you get to watch TV, or you get to play games. So I think that's very important. I think probably one of the most important messages I want to convey to families out there, to parents who are engaging in this, and if you're struggling, I want you to breathe. This is new for you, and I want you to know that I talk to my staff and say the same thing. I want them to breathe, because this is new for them, and I have to tell myself to breathe, because this is very new for me as well. I think it's important to avoid the power struggle with your kids. This is too valuable of a time. We are at home with our families. We've got opportunities to connect with our families. We've got time. I would hate for any family, any parent and kid to get in a power struggle and a fight over schoolwork. You need to know I'm a lifelong educator, so I believe in education, and learning is important. But I'm also a father, and you guys are parents out there. So please do not power struggle with your kids. There are resources out there to help you. Your teachers are there to help you if you have questions. So again, just breathe during that time. Secondly, just talking about the resources that are out there and what are your kids going to be engaged in and doing during this time. I think most important, the resources that your school provide to you, whether it's online or if they were able to send packets home, I think that's the most important thing. You need to listen to communications from your school district, from your teachers, and engage in that first. I have looked at every school district kind of in the region, and they all have some sort of e-learning or distance learning in place. And it's very easily found on websites. Like I said, I've checked in the last couple of days, and all school districts around have something for you to engage in. So I would ask you to please look at that first, look at what your teachers are expecting of you, and engage in that. With that, just as Mr. James said earlier, contact us, contact your teachers. We are here to help. We want you, I promise you, your teachers, they miss your kids. They want to connect with you. So if you have any struggles, any questions, please do that. If you find that you're not getting enough from your school, or you want to look at what else is out there, there is certainly a whole world of online resources out there. A lot of them are free. If you're looking for that, it's very easy to go online and search learning apps, or search online learning or free online learning, and you will get tons of things. With that, I do want to caution you, because just because an organization or a company says their products are free, just be careful on what you're downloading and what you're looking for. Not everyone has your best interest in mind. Things I've found, Khan Academy, and we can probably get that posted for you later. Khan Academy is a great resource for kids in math. TED Ed is also a really great resource. So there's a ton out there online, but just make sure you're being careful. And then I think last, what I want to say is, parents, please remember, you were your kid's first teacher. And don't forget that you can teach. You are a teacher. You taught them from the beginnings of their lives. So you can do this, and I would encourage you to have fun with that. In our house, we've used films. We've used movies that I think my kids should watch. Classic songs that I want them to listen to and talk about and analyze meanings. You can do that. I think this is a great time to teach your kids about your family traditions and your culture. Let them see what you have to do. If you're working from home, let them sit next to you and engage with you and the things that you do. Let them help if you can. Cook a meal with your kids. I think this is a great opportunity for us to engage in a lot of things, and all of that is learning. And don't sell yourself short on that. Your kids can learn in a myriad of different ways. So I would just encourage you to, again, breathe, have fun with this, communicate, provide structure, and you will get through this. I promise you, your teachers, your principals, they're out there to help you. So please reach out to them, and we will get through this. So thank you.
Thank you, Derien, for all that information. I'd like to talk about mental health and mindfulness. So for that, Dr. Kathy Friel will be the next speaker. Kathy?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So I am going to talk a little bit about stress and anxiety, why we feel that way, and some tips to help relieve those emotions a little bit. I'm also going to talk about depression and when it gets to a point where we need to ask for help. As James was saying earlier, there's a whole community out here in Teller County that wants to help with that depression. And if your suicidal thoughts become too much, then we're here to help. So the first thing that I want to talk about, though, is why do we feel that stress and anxiety right now? Well, people like to feel like they're in control. They like everything in a balance. And when we call it homeostasis, and when that homeostasis is not there, then we start feeling that anxiety. Our heart races and everything else happens. So in order for us to keep control of what's going on in our lives and to feel like we have some type of power, we need to acknowledge, first of all, that stress and that anxiety is real. It's happening. So why are you afraid? Why are you feeling that stress? Once you acknowledge that and you can pinpoint where you're feeling it, then the rest of it is a lot easier. So some of the things that I want to talk about is with stress and anxiety, you need to really limit, especially nowadays, your social media and your news. I know that might sound a little counterproductive on what we're doing, but look for the positive things. Look for those kitten videos on Facebook, but don't buy into all of the negative propaganda, if you will. So limit the social media pieces of it. As Derien was saying, also take this opportunity to reach back out to your kids and your family and become a family again. That'll help also reduce the stress and the anxiety. Kids, for one, are going to feed off of what your emotions are. So if you're upset, then they're going to be upset. Parents out there, think way back when your kids were first born and when you would get all upset and crying and hysterical, the baby was crying and hysterical. And when you would stay calm, they would stay calm. So think about using those same techniques now as we're adults. They're, in school or, teenagers. So think about that kind of stuff. And limit your news. I know I have a couple of my family members, I'm from a very large family, that tend to just watch the news all day long. And then by the end of the evening, when we're having our group text conversations, they tend to be very negative. So I've encouraged them and challenged them to only watch the news for a half hour a day. And they don't understand what else there is on TV to watch. So I suggest reach out and watch comedies. We've got so many great comedies on there. Personally, I'm a fan of watching Me TV with Green Acres and all of that is pretty hysterical if you actually want to go back and watch some of those old shows. So one of the things that I always try to instill in all of the people that I work with is when you get up in the morning, the first thing you really probably should do is just stretch. Just good old-fashioned stretch. You ever seen a cat, how they stretch in all those weird positions? Well, do that. Stretch your hands, stretch your arms. It gets your blood moving, and it gets every cell of your body opened up in order to be able to kind of accept what's going on through the day. It's also sends all those good endorphins into your brain, and it hopefully can keep you a little bit calmer. Also, take long, deep breaths throughout the day. And when I say that, I mean really pay attention to and visualize your lungs slowly filling up with that air. And then when you exhale, put your tongue down to the bottom of your mouth so that all that negative energy and everything else can come out of your mouth. So when you exhale, again, visualize your lungs deflating a little bit. That's what I mean by taking those long cleansing breaths. And you need to do that often throughout the day. When you're feeling stress, when you're feeling that anxiety or whatever, go ahead and take those long cleansing breaths. I've caught myself walking through my living room a few times and just stopping and taking that, and it kind of recenters me a little bit. So when do you feel that depression might be getting too much for you to handle alone? Well, first of all, you need to choose to be positive. I know that's easier said than done, but everything really is a choice at this point. And please remember, everybody, this is not our new normal. This is, as James said, this is a blip on the radar, what it's going to be like. 10 years from now, when they do the recap of this decade, this is just going to be, hey, does anybody remember the coronavirus? Now it's intense right now, and we will get through this. We'll get through it together. And I think people are doing a really good job on working together on things. So think positive, choose to be positive. When your depression, when you start noticing that it's getting worse, is when you're not connecting with other people. So if you're not reaching out to people that you've not talked to in a very long time, friends that life just happens and a year goes by and you've not talked to them, pick up the phone and call them, reach out to them. Like I said, kind of stay off social media, but reach out and talk to your friends. When you're not doing that, your depression will increase. When you realize you're becoming more emotional than normal, when maybe a small situation becomes a big, huge blow up, then start noticing what's going on inside and see if you can't turn that around. But when your suicidal thoughts become more often than not, then absolutely please reach out to our teams. There's a lot of resources out there nowadays. Most every mental health person, I think, is doing telehealth and things like that. I know my organization is. In fact, we are starting support groups this coming week on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons, telehealth kind of wise, for people that just are struggling with the stress and anxiety and the depression and things like that. So anybody in Teller County that is struggling with that kind of stuff, reach out to me and I'll get you on our list to be part of our groups. They are free to everybody. So again, the stress and anxiety piece, one relaxation technique that I do want to share with you guys is to find a quiet place and think of some place that you have enjoyed in your lifetime or would like to maybe go see or visit. And use all 5 of your senses while you're thinking about it. Now, I originally am from New England, and so I like the beach. And when I try to do this relaxation technique and I sit down and close my eyes and I'm visualizing being on the beach, and I really try to put myself there and I try to smell the salt air and I try to feel the warmth of the sand on my feet, and I try to, really pay attention and try to listen to, can I hear the seagulls and that type of thing? Can I taste the salt in the air? That's what I talk about. We're trying to use all 5 of your senses on imagining, these places that we've been. Think about being in the mountains, in a nice log cabin. We got 7 inches of snow up here, as most of you know, last night. And, a nice cup of hot chocolate last night was wonderful with some marshmallows in it. So those are the kinds of things, but think about that hot chocolate and what it tastes like and how warm it is and what it smells like and, what the fireplace sounds like when it's crackling and things like that. So hope everybody doesn't need a lot of these techniques, but if you do, please reach out to me and my team, reach out to anybody on this team. And there's a ton of resources out there to help with your stress, anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate everything you had to say, and I think I'm going to try stretching tomorrow morning. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about are family relationships, and for that, I'm also going to turn that over to Dr. Kathy Friel.
Welcome. Okay, so what I want to talk about with relationships and things like that, it's difficult at best being with each other 24/7. I have joked with my siblings that this is a good test of what it's going to be like to be retired with that person. But the difference is you're going to be able to get out and travel and go do things where right now we can't. So we have to be a little bit more creative on things. So how do you cope with your partner or with your kids when they're around all the time? I know there's extra challenges with families that have maybe children with special needs, that they're not getting that respite. So please reach out to all of your resources. The Autism Society and things like that have amazing resources right now for helping parents that can't get that respite. So please reach out. One of the things I want to talk about, though, with couples is be kind to each other. Really, again, like I was just talking about, pay attention to how you're feeling and pay attention to your own emotions. And don't pick unnecessary fights. If you guys have ever heard that expression of water off a duck's back. So if you've ever seen that, water will hit a duck's back and just roll right off. Try to do that with your family members right now. Just acknowledge it for what it was and just move on and understand that everybody's stressed, everybody's scared, everybody's anxious right now. And we'll figure this out together. Togetherness really is the key, you guys, to pretty much everything that we're talking about up here on stage. Yes, you need to talk about your feelings with your family members and your spouse and things, but, kind kind of limit that. Don't over talk your feelings is what I call it. I mean, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. Especially us women, we have a tendency to over talk our emotions sometimes, and guys don't want to talk about emotions. So this is a good exercise to try to find that balance. Be kind to each other, like I said, and give each other that, needed space that you might have or might need. Go outside. It's been beautiful out. This next week is supposed to be gorgeous. Even up here in Teller County, we're supposed to be in the 60s, so I know I'm going to finish my yard work so I can maybe get ready to plant some flowers in time. If somebody needs to go out in the garage or whatever, just go ahead and do it. As couples, still have date night. Even though you can't go out and even though the kids are home, you can still do date night. Put the kids in another room, have them have a camp out or something like that. Pitch a tent in their bedroom. Let them have a camp out and, make those s'mores cookies or give them s'mores cookies or something like that. And you guys sit out there and, have a nice dinner and just talk about none of this. Maybe plan a vacation, just the two of you, or plan a vacation, with the kids. Get everybody involved and look forward to the future. I think a lot of the problems right now are stemming from the fact that we're so focused on right now, today. So maybe if we do start looking toward the future a little bit too, that might put us in a happier mood. Like I said, plan something fun to do. We are blessed and spoiled up here in Teller County with having all of these amazing places to go with our state parks and on and on and on. And I know I'm already planning some trips to 11 Mile. So help your kids with their feelings and their emotions. And I don't care how old they are, from little to, teenagers. They feed off of how you feel. So, try to stay calm. Don't lie to your kids, but maybe talk at their level, and don't try not to over-exaggerate or get hysterical about anything that you might hear on the news. Look for reliable resources. If you're concerned about health stuff, use reliable resources. Like WebMD and those kinds of things, World Health Organization and stuff like that. They've got the most reliable information out there. And allow your kids to talk about nothing, about everything, but always try to read between those lines on what they're saying, so you can kind of get a handle on their mental health as well. If they're starting to slip a little bit or get depressed, want to spend a little bit more time alone, please really pay attention to that, because kids can get suicidal pretty quick without most people knowing about it. Don't give kids a lot of space. Give them their time, obviously, but right now that we're home all the time, don't just, let them get up in the morning and do a couple hours of schoolwork and then let them just hang out in their bedroom all day. Make them come out and be part of the family, and again, reconnect. That's the big thing. Really stick with your routine and, stay connected. So be nice to each other.
Thank you, Kathy. I know we kept you talking for a while, so what I'd like to move to is substance abuse or substance use discussions by Darlyn Baker from Department of Public Health.
Hi again, and thank you for joining us online. This is just really great to come after what Dr. Kathy has been saying, because it's a challenging time, and it's a temptation during this time to increase potentially your substance use, because your routines have changed. The emotions and anxiety and depression that we've been talking about could be there. If you're in recovery, your triggers are there, and it's really tempting to go this way. We talked about routines and boredom, kind of, because you're cabin fever, you're inside, things are different. And when you have a routine, you have to go to work and all that stuff, you might not drink that night before you go to work the next day. And so just in normal circumstances, it wouldn't be as tempting to maybe drink a little excess or use more marijuana or go back to your old habits of if you're in recovery and looking at triggers. So I just want to talk about alcohol for a minute. We don't realize how detrimental alcohol can be if it's used in excess, okay? So your normal low risk for a female, okay, so is 3 a day, okay, 3 drinks a day, 7 in a week, okay. For men, they can do 4 in a day or 14 in a week, but that doesn't mean you can do it 4 every day, or else you'd go over the 14 in a week. The reason, and then if you're 65 or older, you are like women in general, which is 3 a day or 7 in a week. The reason for that is your body cannot process that much alcohol. So it causes damage. It becomes toxic in your system if you go over that. That's why we say binge drinking is bad, because it starts causing damage to you, as you know. And if you're chronically using excessive alcohol, it also causes heart disease. It can cause liver damage. It can cause stomach upsets and ulcers and those kind of things. I also want to describe what a drink is, because a glass of wine is 5 fluid ounces, and I don't have a visual to show you, but you can look at Espert, Colorado. If you Google it online, you can see what an actual drink looks like, okay? So 5 ounces of wine, it's not a big, huge glass of wine, 12 fluid ounces of regular beer, standard beer, and then 1.5 fluid ounces of liquor, so your brandy or your other whiskey, those kind of things. So why not going excess on alcohol right now? It'll decrease your impulse control. You might get more agitated. Of course, it's a depressant. So if you're dealing with depression already, it could cause that issues. We talked about the physical damage, also relationships. We were just talking about relationships and building that. And if you're using in excess with alcohol, it can cause more problems. So I just want to touch base on marijuana and a couple other substances, but overlaying all this, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but if you're in recovery, please, please reach out to whoever your resources are. There is a lot of telehealth out there right now. Whoever has been supporting you in that, there's all sorts of resources in that. So marijuana, same thing. We think doesn't cause any damage, but it can. It decreases your immune system if you use it in excess, just so you know. Also, it can increase your anxiety. It can affect your sleep. It's a depressant too, again. So just watch use of that. Marijuana of today, as you probably all know, is like at least 4 times stronger than it was in the 80s. So just be aware, this isn't the time to start trying out recreational marijuana at this moment. So it can be damaging, and it alters you. You can't think as straight. And so anyway, opioids, I really want to mention this. This is your heroin or prescription pain medicines out there. If your chronic pain, if you have chronic pain and you're dealing with that, it's potential that it is increasing during this time because of stress and inflammation because of stress in your body. So the temptation to maybe increase your pain medicine at this moment might be there. So look at other ways to deal with chronic pain. And this is a whole other discussion, but it's something we can talk about separately. And there's experts out there that we talk about other alternatives to dealing with your pain, your physical pain. But one of the big ones, and I think it's been mentioned a couple times, is get up and move. Move as much as you can, do your breathing, do your meditation, and those kind of things that have already been talked about, but we'll talk about a little bit more. There's increased risk at this time when you're challenged and you're stressed to potentially do an overdose, because if you have not been using opioids on a regular basis, this could occur if you decide to start using it more right now. So again, if you're in recovery, look at those triggers, don't start. If you're taking any kind of like Valium, they're called benzodiazepines, but it's like Valium, Ativan, those kind of drugs with opioids, it even increases your risk for overdose even more. Now, this is a medical emergency, 911, definitely, but reach out before you get to that point of wanting to use more. So, and whatever your drug of choice has been in the past, or weakness that you feel, your challenge, I can't talk about all the different substances out there, but just be aware. So the biggest thing is, number one, is being aware that maybe you're using more alcohol, you're drinking more alcohol at this point. How can you get back into the healthy range during this time? Also, reach out to the resources that I was telling you about already. Reaching out to whoever your therapy people were, your recovery people were, if it's AA, if it's Celebrate Recovery, I think will be mentioned here in just a few. We're being very creative in the community to have access online so you can get that support. So please, please reach out. One of the things is the 3Ds, or when you're feeling like you're wanting to use, okay, or increase use or unhealthy use. The first thing is delay. So believe it or not, cravings are very limited. They usually don't last more than 20 minutes, okay? And usually less than that. But at the moment, it feels really hard not to do that. But so delay, and then distract. And I know it's been mentioned what some distraction techniques. So you're making that decision to do something else, okay? And so that is the third D, is a decision or choice, as Dr. Friel had said earlier. Why do you not want to use at this moment? Why do you not want to drink that extra glass of whiskey? Why do you want to, is it relationships? Is it for your family? Is it so that you're not wanting to, the financial costs for it right now? Or remind yourself of the reasons that you want to not use at the moment. And then some of the strategies, and you know what works for you, but and some of them are mentioned already, but movement, like I said, but taking a shower, just, okay, you want to drink or you want to use, go take a shower, because you can do that in your house. Music, and looking at the music and what it means. Play a computer game. I know, call a friend. Yoga, meditation that you were talking about. Watch a movie. All of what I was talking about for alcohol, I just need to paraphrase back. This is 21 and older, okay? Kids, younger ones, no. It's still hasn't changed. Shouldn't start using substances as you're younger, too. And
Darlyn,
again,
I'm sorry, Darlyn.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much. And I know that, Teller County Department of Public Health is doing so much in our community right now. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here to talk to us about this today. One thing I will say, I'm out and about quite often. driving, monitoring different areas. And I want to say what I've seen in the community is that you have a lot of people that are out walking. They're enjoying time as a family. I hear a lot of good stories about families at home, and this has really changed and given them more time to be a family also. So I'm not saying there's anything good about the pandemic issues that we're dealing with, but there is good in the fact that we are able to see more family members, talk to people on the phone a little bit more that we haven't talked to in a long time. A lot of self-reflection time on what we can do better and how we can handle things better. And what I'm really seeing in the community too is you have a community strong in the fact that, you know, we have an educated community, a good community that really care about each other. And I'm seeing a lot of that type of thing too going on in the community. So for all the negatives that it brings up when we talk about these responses, there's a lot of really good things that our community is doing to support each other. And I don't ever want to think that we lose track of those things as well. So for the next piece, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Ann Crampton, who is going to talk about resiliency skills. Thank you, Ann.
Well, thank you very much for that. And first off, I just want to talk a little bit about what resiliency means. And it really is looking at, the saying of making lemonade out of lemons, what life is throwing at you, how you weather those storms that you experience. And it's not that it's saying that life is a bed of roses. It's looking at reality, checking at what we're experiencing right now, which is the COVID epidemic. And then how do we deal with that effectively as an individual and as a community? And so I'm very grateful to have the honor to be able to talk with you guys and do at least what I feel my part in sharing with the folks out there on what we can do to make us stronger through this. Because I believe that, no, this is not our new normal. However, we're learning a lot of really cool skills and techniques and touching back with our families and that kind of thing. And I think once all of this passes, we're going to be in a much better place. And I really am looking forward to that. So with resiliency skills, I'm going to touch on 4 different things here, 2 of which are going to talk more on how you deal with things personally, and then the other 2 things are dealing more on the activity base from that. So first and foremost, one of the things that you can do right now is you can focus on what you can control. Oftentimes we hear about anxiety, we hear about anger, we hear about fear of the unknown. Well, all of that is going on, and it's very true, and it's very normal to be experiencing that because we don't know when this is going to end. We don't know what the outcome of this is going to look like. But what we do know is we know what we're seeing right now. And we know what we have within our households and within ourselves in there. And so what I would ask for you to do is ask yourself why. Well, first and foremost, how are you feeling? Are you feeling anxious? Are you scared? Are you angry? That's okay. Ask yourself why. Why are you feeling that way? Is it because you're afraid that you may not have enough food? Is it you're afraid that you're not going to have enough income to weather the storm and those kind of things as well? And then ask yourself, well, what is it that I can control? And also emphasize and recognize what you cannot control. We cannot stop the COVID virus right now, personally. But what we can do is make the best of the education that we have with our children, the family time that we have, the food that we can have access to, and those kind of things. And you focus on that. You look at, for example, if you're wondering, do I have enough food to make it through here? Well, first and foremost, you need to know what are your options for food. The supermarkets are still open. Yes, the hours are limited, but those hours are open. And if having access to the food or the means to purchase the food right now, we have food pantries that are open. And Pastor Scott is going to talk more about that. And so there's a lot of things and options out there. Heck, this is why we're having this panel here, so that you're more informed on what is important to you, and you can make the decision on how you want to go about doing that, and then do it. And once you accomplish it, that's a huge feeling of support that you're actually able to do these kind of things there. The other thing that we often do is beat ourselves up. If I were to ask you to say in 30 seconds, write down all the negative things that you have about yourself, is 30 seconds enough? If I ask you in that same 30 seconds to write all of the great things about you, is 30 seconds too much? And so oftentimes we tend to look at our negatives as opposed to focusing on our strengths and our positives. And so I always say that when you're dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and that kind of thing, you may end up making mistakes, and that's okay because we're not perfect. And forgive yourself for those mistakes. So if you make it, own it, learn from it, apologize if there's somebody else that's been impacted by it, and ask for forgiveness. And on the same vein, do the same thing for the person across from you. We've been talking about the family experiences and that kind of thing. Yeah, we want to have and encourage as much fun as possible, but reality sets in, and there are going to be times where they're going to test your limits, and that's okay. And being honest with what's going on and recognizing that maybe things didn't work out, maybe that World War III that we just had last night, put your ego aside and be the first one to step forward and say, look, I'm sorry. I apologize. That's not what I meant it to be there. And by all means, ask for a do-over. Sometimes our egos get in the way of us asking for a do-over, but that's perfectly fine. You're going to be going through some new territories here, and you're going to make some mistakes. Ask for a do-over, work through it again, and by all means, let it go. Because if you hold it on with side of you, that just increases the stress that you carry, and just makes it for a more difficult time to deal with it. The other thing, and we've been harping on this a lot here, but it's so important, and we're so fortunate to have the parks and places opened up, is to exercise for 30 minutes a day. What this does is it releases that excess energy and stress that we carry along. It also promotes really positive and good feelings within ourselves. This could be a simple walk. If you run, go ahead and run. Grab your family members and take a hike. You can do a lot of things on a walk. In fact, if you're dealing with a lot of pent-up anger and you need to work through some things, walks will help you get through that very nicely. You can reinforce that education that Derien was talking about with discussing what did you just learn yesterday, or what were your takeaways from this morning, and kind of allow your kids to share with them what were the major takeaways from the teaching there. This also gives you a great time to listen. Just stop talking, do the walk, and just listen to what the other members of your family have to say in a very non-threatening environment. And then on bad days like last night and yesterday, turn up the music and dance. Have some fun and dance. There's just a lot of fun of just putting in some of the oldies, some good music, and just let yourself go and enjoy life. Because these are going to be times where you're going to look back and you're always going to remember what was going on during the COVID crisis here. And then the other important aspect of this is sleep. I cannot emphasize how crucial sleep is right now. Sleep is how the brain cleanses its organ. It also clears the mind up. There's a reason why we always feel so well when we wake up in the morning. And so there are, I can certainly post some other strategies for sleeping techniques. They're out there if you want to go online and look for how do I get to sleep better, because when you're stressed, a lot of times sleep doesn't come natural. But playing off of what Derien talked about, establishing that behavioral pattern, that is very critical. Try to get to sleep at the same time every night. Definitely want to try to wake up every morning around the same time. Your body will get into that rhythm there. And if you're working shift work, like Tiny here, if you can allow yourselves to take a 20 or 30-minute nap, sometimes that can be the best refreshing sleep that you can ever have. You just don't want to go over that time period there. So again, be kind to yourself. Look for the positive in things. And you'll find that this isn't as bad as it may look like. It is what it is. But if you can actually put yourself in a state of mind where you can make the best of this for you and your family and for those around you, go after that and take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think this next one's a very important piece where a lot of people are worried about finances right now. I think it's a concern for a lot of families, causes a lot of stress and a lot of worry because they don't know what's happening next. So for that, we're going to have Lee Taylor talk about family finances. Lee?
Thank you. I'm a full-service financial advisor with Edward Jones, and I help people establish financial goals and work with them and develop a plan to get there. The important thing now is to stay with your plan. A lot of people want to retire, they want to build a retirement home, they want to send their kids to college, they want to plan an anniversary trip, all those different kind of things. Those are still really, really important. We're going through some tough times now, but focus on the long term and the goals. Design your retirement home. Talk about the anniversary trip. Do those kind of things. A lot of people are worried about their account values right now. Those are all going to come back. They do every single time. Review your plan, make sure you're on track, check all your paperwork, update things, maybe decide if you need to review different documents and things like that. But focus on the long term. It is an absolutely awesome time to invest for your long-term goals if you've got the ability to. A lot of people right now, though, are going through some really tough financial times, like Jason said. The federal government's done a huge amount through the CARES Act to help us get back to normal as fast as possible, and that's mostly what I'm going to talk about. Some of my stuff's technical. There's some websites there. The slides are all going to be posted on the website when we're done. So you don't have to worry about jotting a whole lot of stuff down. Everything I'm going to talk off of is there. I'm going to hit the big points first. The CARES Act is the largest spending bill in U.S. government history. It's $2.3 trillion. And the whole idea is it's a bridge back to normal. A lot of people have been told to stay at home, don't work. That's disrupting things, as we've already heard. But the key thing is it's disrupting a lot of families financially. And there's almost something in there for everybody. And one of the key things is I'm going to hit the highlights on that and then hit a little bit more detail. But the whole idea is there is assistance coming. There's enhanced unemployment for folks that have lost their jobs. There's a delay on filing your taxes. Now's a pretty good time to work on them and get them in early, though, so you might get your refund back earlier. There's increased access to retirement accounts. I do IRAs, 401ks, help people save for retirement. Most people's biggest financial bucket is their retirement plan, and a lot of times there's penalties associated with that. Those have been waived for right now. There's mortgage and rent relief stuff that we're going to touch on to help people. There's student loan suspensions. And for small business owners, going hot today with the Small Business Administration are some special loans that are designed to be able to keep people on your payroll, continue to pay them while they're at home, hire new people, and it's all designed for business continuity so we don't lose small businesses, which create most of the jobs in America right now. The cash payments are already in the mail. The information that I got last night is they're starting with the lowest income folks first. And for everybody that makes up to $75,000, there's a $1,200 check coming. If you're a couple, there's a $2,400 check coming. And if we got each child under 17, there's another $500 coming. So a family could easily see over $3,000, $4,000 as a bridge piece for them in there. There are some income limits. That's going to be on the slides. And those income limits are reduced essentially for every $100 you make over the threshold of 75 individual or 150, there's a $5 reduction. So they phase out for individuals at $99,000 and $198,000 for a couple. But that's going to catch most everybody in the county with some economic assistance. There's no income requirements for this. And you don't have to have worked to be able to get the $1,200. So it's going to help folks a lot as a bridge way to pay for groceries, pay for utilities, and things like that. There's increased unemployment. The federal government, on top of what the state's going to pay, is going to kick in an extra $600. And then there's an additional extension of 13 weeks. It'll more or less take everybody till December the 31st. And we're going to be back to normal. People are going to be working and businesses are going to be back to thriving by then. The really good thing about this is it came in when we had record unemployment, record low unemployment, people working, and everything going pretty well. It could have hit us at a whole lot worse time. So we got sick when we were really strong and really healthy. One of the things a lot of folks are already looking at is the tax filing deadline has been delayed to July the 15th. But with all those other things going on and being locked in at home, you may want to consider putting everything together and then going ahead and getting your taxes submitted so you can get an additional payment inside of your taxes back from the federal government. The CPAs are still working. They're critical and essential folks right now, just like financial folks like me, to help people get access to their money. But think about going ahead and working on your taxes right now. Changes on retirement accounts. Most folks have most of their money in their 401k, or if they're self-employed, it's an IRA, a simple SEP, one of the small business retirement plans. Usually, there is a 10% penalty to access that money. That penalty is waived right now. Usually with a 401k, there's a loan limit of $50,000. That's been increased to $100,000, and you can pay yourself back over 3 years. If you take money out of your retirement plan and don't pay it back, you're going to owe taxes on it, but those taxes are not going to be all due at once. They're going to be spread over 3 years to lessen the tax burden for you. So they've done some really good things in the CARES Act to help people. If you are able to, there's additional deductions, even if you don't itemize, for charitable gifts. For homeowners, for mortgages, you can ask your lender for a 180-day, that's 6-month delay, and then ask for another delay. That means you potentially, if you're unemployed, not working, might not have to make a mortgage payment for almost a year. There's a restriction on foreclosure actions for a while, because a lot of folks aren't bringing home paychecks right now. If you're a renter, there's some relief for renters for 120 days in there. And there's penalties have been waived, or your landlord can't charge you a penalty for not paying. A lot of folks have student loans for going to college or going to some continuing ed. The payments on those have been waived until the end of September. Even if it's automatic coming out of your paycheck, because a lot of folks get a discount if they set it up for automatic payments, those payments are not going to happen until the end of September. So there's really great things going on there. I've talked to all the different local banks in the last 24 hours. There's a special program called Payroll Protection Program. It allows a small business under 500 employees to take out a loan, and the purpose of that loan is to continue to pay their employees if they're at home. It applies to churches, to nonprofits, to small businesses, to landlords if they have rentals, independent contractors, self-employed folks. It applies to a whole number of people. And what you do is you talk to your local banking agency first. I've talked to Vectra, Park State, community banks, Int. What they want you to do is, if you already have a relationship with them, call them, tell them your situation, work with them. They are going to do, with federal government support, some waivers, some delays, things on your mortgage payment. And the whole idea, though, the small business owner is going to be able to apply for and get a forgivable loan. It's about 2.5 times their monthly salary. It can be used primarily for payroll, but also for rent, for utilities, for things like that. So the business doesn't go under, and it's a bridge till we get people back to work. The slides have got that websites on there, but essentially your local banking agencies are going to work with you to help you survive this. The markets are going to recover. People are going to go back to work. We hope sooner than later. Spring's coming. Focus on your long-term plan and your long-term goals, and this is a bump in the road, and keep focused. And help your neighbor and make wise decisions through this. There's all kind of assistance out there, and focus on the right information from the right folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate what you came in and talked about today. I think that'll help a lot of families. All of that will still be posted on tellercovid.com. We'll get that up as soon as possible. I'd like to talk about spiritual support. Scott Park, our pastor here locally from Impact Church, would you please talk to us a little bit?
Thank you, Sheriff. Well, I tell you what, I've learned a lot just sitting here today. It's been great to be part of a wonderful panel. Some might wonder, why is a pastor part of this? I am not here to preach a sermon, but I am here to just share with anybody who's watching that on behalf of all the churches in our area here in Teller County, I don't know, I think there's about 30 churches, that there are many, many people, other pastors here as well, that would love to reach out and help and support, encourage, talk with, pray with whoever might have any kind of need. We're not created to be alone, and so it's important to look for opportunities and ways to draw strength from one another, and to listen to our Creator. And so I believe that God's Word is not just a book. It is a book, but it's a lot more than that. It's His inspired Word. And rather than just invite you to our church or other churches, I would invite you to listen to Jesus' invitation when He said in Matthew chapter 11, He said, "Come to me, anyone who is tired and carrying a heavy burden, and I will give you rest." I think rest is something a lot of people are short on right now. We've heard about how you can work on that from the physical realm and spend time focused on things that are healthy for your body and all of that, and a number of other angles there. But I would say in the context of spiritual things, we need to make sure that we are connected to our Creator. And our Lord Jesus loves us more than we can possibly comprehend. And He's the one who invited and said, "Come to me if you're weary and carry a heavy burden, and I will give you rest." James chapter 4 tells us, "Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you." And so if you feel distance there, take a step in that direction, and God says He will come near to you as well. Recently, I preached about a passage in Philippians chapter 4, and again, this is not a sermon, but I would tell you this. There's an A plus B equals C formula in that cool chapter of God's Word. People often talk about wanting peace, a peace in the middle of the storm, a peace that passes all understanding. Well, that comes from Philippians 4, where the Apostle Paul was used by God to talk about that. The A plus B equals C formula looks like this. He says, "Do not be anxious about anything." In other words, don't worry about anything. And that leaves out nothing. That's an all-inclusive word. Do not be anxious about anything, but with everything, with prayer and petition and with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and then the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. A plus B equals C. If we choose to take Him at His word and not worry, remembering, as Jesus said, that tomorrow has enough worries of its own. He said that in the Sermon on the Mount. If we understand that, then we choose to trust the Lord and not worry about things that are beyond our control, and then present our requests to Him with thanksgiving as well as the request, remembering that even in the middle of a crisis, a pandemic, or whatever it looks like from your perspective, there are always things to be grateful for, things in the rearview mirror and things that are yet to come. And if we look forward and say to the Lord, "Thank you for all these things, and here's my request," and lay it at His feet, He promises then to bless us with a peace that passes all understanding. And I just love that. I absolutely love that. And then one more scripture would be probably my favorite, or one of my favorites in all of God's Word. In Proverbs chapter 3, the Bible says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." He'll make your paths straight. You know, a lot of times we feel like in moments like this, wow, this is a hard road, and the path is anything but straight. It feels, like I'm riding down a path more like Rampart Range Road or something, that it's full of potholes and drop-offs, and it's dark, and maybe it's snow-covered or whatever. And it's hard to feel comfortable on that path. And we question whether or not we can trust the one leading us. Well, as opposed to when we're following somebody down an interstate, or even a road more like Highway 24, which is still a lot different than Rampart Range Road. If you're on something like that and you're following somebody, it's pretty easy to trust them in the sense that you're following behind them. You could still almost put it on cruise control and just let the car do it for you. But when you're following somebody through a dark and difficult or bumpy road, That's when you find out if you really trust them. And God's word says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Again, all-inclusive word, leaving out nothing. And lean not on your own understanding. Don't search within. Don't try to dig deep and check your own heart or your own gut or any of that, but look for truth in the source of truth, which is God's word. And if we do that, he says that he'll make our path straight. And that's when we find out, do we really trust him? It is the difficult times, I look back in my life, that I can see growth. I don't ever pray, oh, dear God, please give me some more difficult stuff so that I can learn to trust you more. But as I look in the rearview mirror, it is the difficult times in life that helped me grow. And so in that respect, while this is a very difficult time, I think we would all agree with that. And who knows what the next weeks or months will look like. While that is the case, there is still a lot of good that is coming out of this as well. There is beauty within the ashes. It is a brutal situation, but it is a beautiful situation at the same time. And so therefore, I like to call it a brutiful situation, in that we combine those words and find something that only the Lord can do, and that is to bring good out of bad, work through that. He promises that in Romans chapter 8 when he says, all things work together for good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Again, all things, leaving out nothing, even pandemics. And so I see that happening, and I think if you're struggling and you're feeling alone and you're feeling down, I mean, we've heard from others as well in terms of options and places to pursue help. I just want to say on behalf of the churches in our community, Impact Christian Church being one of them, but there are many other great churches in our county as well, call them. We're not meeting in our church buildings on Sunday morning, but we're doing online services, or at least many of us are. I know we are. If you want to be part of an online service, you can check our website. We do that on Sunday morning, but it actually is up all week long. And I think some of the other churches in town are doing the same thing. So you can sign on and be part of a online worship service and study time together, prayer time together that way. There are also resources that are available at our church as well as others. We have two of the other pastors on staff put together a pandemic survival kit, and you can pick that up just outside our front door. Well, the doors are locked, but outside the front door there are a couple of boxes full of lots of different things, including that pandemic survival kit, which is a great resource for families, children's, moms and dads, and so forth. We also have free Bibles available there. There are food resources, whether it be through our church or others. Community Partnership is a wonderful organization just across the street from the Sheriff's Office in Divide, on the other side of Highway 24 there, near McGinty's. And I would encourage you to check them out. The Little Pantry or Food Chapel at the Little Chapel. I said that wrong. But anyway, the food pantry there in Divide, they also are doing a great job of helping people with needs in that respect. I would tell you this, there's also something really special coming up tomorrow. I just recently found out about it. It is a global day of prayer. So it's a lot bigger than Teller County, a lot bigger than even Colorado or the United States. It's a worldwide prayer and fasting event tomorrow to connect with our Lord and ask him for guidance and direction as we go through this, and asking him to not only lead us, but to bring relief. And so if you want to know more about that, you can also check it out on our website, and maybe your church is doing it as well. But it's Saturday, tomorrow, that we're doing that together across the world. And there's a morning, an afternoon, and an evening session, and a number of details are there on our website at impactcc.net. You can check that out. Somebody also mentioned earlier, Celebrate Recovery. That is something that happens at our church building at Impact Christian Church, but it's not just an Impact thing. It's a Teller County thing, and it's for anybody that has any kind of hurt, habit, or hang-up. Substance abuse might be part of that, but there are a lot of people who come to Celebrate Recovery that don't have an issue with substance of any kind, but of some other kind of hurt, habit, or hang-up. And I want to encourage you to come and check that out. They're still meeting in a very limited capacity on Monday nights in person. Most people are actually checking in through a Zoom option. Zoom is a wonderful online platform. You can you can find out more about. But if you want to know more about that or be part of that, they have gender-specific groups that meet Monday nights, and you can do that by calling Lee Chapin, whose name and number is there on the website, or there on the screen, I think. But we want to just encourage you to look for opportunities to connect with one another, to allow the Lord to be your source. He says in Psalm chapter 46 to come to him and to be still and know that he is God. And sometimes in the dark or in the quiet, that's when we find out who we really are. And God wants to speak to you in the middle of that. So if you have questions or concerns, turn to him. You can turn to anyone at our church or other churches in town as well. But God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Parks. And to follow up on something the pastor was speaking about was there is a lot of food options in the county. And one thing we've seen, and through the volunteers that are moving meals, and you can speak if you're on the far end of the county by Victor and Cripple Creek, Donna Brazil and the Aspen Mine Center are doing a wonderful job. Right now, the county and all the volunteers and organizations are feeding hundreds and hundreds of people on a weekly and daily occasion. So there's always the ability to get food if you need it in this county. And if you need to, please reach out to the Teller COVID site, and we can direct you to some capabilities to get that to you. So what I'd like to do now is we've heard from a lot of folks on how to do resiliency and how to really look towards the future and what to do and in your options. What I want to do is have Don Angel, our County Office of Emergency Manager, and speak a little bit about what we're doing in the county and how he's running this operation with and really who are actually in charge of the operation. What are they doing? But I'd like Don to speak a little about that. Don?
I appreciate that. Thank you. First thing I'd like to do is steal Pastor Park's word. It is a brutal situation. And I want to personally take a moment to thank all the volunteers that are helping our community. I have the task, along with ESF 13, Emergency Support Function 13, and Emergency Support Function 8, our public health. The three of us combined consist of, in essence, a command staff. We are the ones that have to sit down, vet information, take a look at what projects we are going to pursue, how we're going to pursue them, plan for them, make those plans come to action, figure out the financing, track the financing. But it's really the volunteers, the boots on the ground, that make things work in this pandemic. It's not a fire. It's not firefighters doing it all. They're doing their portion. It's EMS doing their portion. It's law enforcement doing their portion. It's public works doing their portion. It's all of us combined trying to make a better world when this is over. But it all starts with the efforts of the volunteers that are feeding people, that are organizing people. This is a perfect example of people who are brought together to do a better purpose as we go forward. One of the things in the county that we do, doo-doo's not really the word, but you catch my drift. One of the biggest things that we do is coordinate the efforts. The Teller Combined Agency Team consists of people from Victor, Cripple Creek, Woodland Park, Teller County, multiple other organizations. We meet, we talk daily, we listen to each other, we come up with ideas to be better. And that is one of the things that we are all very blessed at. Teller County has stepped forward. We try to project where we need to be to take care of our citizens. This was one of the thoughts, this podcast forum, symposium today was one of those thoughts to reach out to you, our community. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts, your concerns, your issues. We all have them. We all have certain fears. None of us have the crystal ball of what's going to happen. So we need to work together. And that's what we do. We sit down, we brainstorm, we think, we follow a very patterned approach. It is the same approach that we use, whether it is a wildland fire, a flood, a hurricane, a tornado, a blizzard. It's all of that combined that we are dealing with today. It's just a different nature. So we have done some certain things. We have put together an alternative care site. We can house anywhere from 50 to 180 patients. One of our donors was Riox here in Woodland Park, who donated enough oxygen concentrators that we can actually serve every bed should there be a need. We have put together donations from Walmart, Home Depots, every business here in town that can contribute has. We thank you for your efforts. It is a true Teller combined effort. We are very fortunate. We are trying to go 2 to 3 weeks ahead. I tried to make sure that we have the PPE, the personal protective equipment, for our frontline first responders. We're working with our long-term care facilities to reach out to them, find out their needs, and we're working to meet needs as supplies come in to meet those demands. But again, it's through the people of Teller County that are going to make us all successful. It's not one group, it's not one person, it's all of us combined. And that is the strength that we get from each other and from our community. Yes, times are different. Nobody knows what the next step truly is, but we can adapt, adjust, and overcome to those things that get in our way. Those obstacles that we deemed were obstacles are really opportunities to do better, to think forward. We've made a sneeze guard to work with the hospital, the EMS transport people. We showed it to them yesterday. Now it's going across the state. This is what you want. This was ideas from our medics, our paramedics, our doctors, our nurses, our ED folks, our ambulance drivers. All of them had input. And we, Teller County, make it work. It's not a single effort. It's always combined. We're very fortunate. We have followed the process of the national NIMS, okay? NIMS concept, National Incident Management System. It's the system that we use. We are very down to earth. We put out our emergency action plan every day. It has gone from a simple 6-page to over 55 pages. And yes, it details what every organization, what every person, how we fit together, how we support each other, and how we check upon each other. And we do that. I can tell you right now, we reach out to each other daily and ask each other, how are you doing? Are you feeling okay? Do you need a couple minutes down? How can I take a burden off your back? It is a team. It is the Teller team. And I'm very blessed to be one of the top that helped to get organized. Believe me, it's not a one-man show. It's not a 3-person show. It's not any one department. It's all of us together. So I thank you. With that, I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Don. So what we're going to do next, because I know that we're a lot of talking heads on a stage that are just giving information. So what we want to do is open it up to the public for questions. So what's going to happen, and I'm not being rude, I'm going to be looking at my phone, scrolling through it, because I'm getting the questions live from the community so that I can ask on stage to our partners those questions so they can answer it for you. So the first question, and these are all anonymous questions that are coming into us. So first one, how can you accurately state the number of cases in Teller when there is no testing available? Also, do you have any of the drugs that have shown promise in combating the virus? Anyone like to answer?
Take the drugs.
So that's a great question. And the answer is, as we know, testing is a challenge across the country. But thanks to the wonderful support we have from UC Health, we've been able to really ramp up the testing in our community. And of course, the number that's reflected on a daily basis isn't the exact number for that day. We know that's a moving target, and that number is going to continue to change. We also know that on the front side, that not everyone who's sick is going to be tested. And that's a combination of a couple of things. We don't do that because we want people to stay home if they can stay home. We don't want them out in the public and getting other folks sick. So we want to encourage them to stay home. And testing for a majority of people, what we have to remember is that for most people who are experiencing the COVID virus, their symptoms are manageable at home, and they can be well cared for in the home and with resources like telehealth, which you can find on the COVID-19 website or the Teller COVID-19 website. So on the front side, the testing that we have available and the capacity to test that we have available has to be limited to those who are sickest so that we know that is the disease we're working with, and for our healthcare providers, so that we know that is the disease we're working with, and that we know how to best manage their care. Right now, that's our focus, is taking care of the small percentage that are going to get very, very sick. So that's for the testing part. And then for the medications, I can say that, again, we are very blessed in this community to have a great partnership with UC Health. And for the medications that have shown some promise, they because UC Health is tied to a major learning university and the Anschutz campus up in the Denver metro area, they are on the cutting edge of what medications are and are not working. And they're working with CDC and other entities to make sure that they are bringing all the resources of their entity to bear. And then for the medications that treat the symptoms, which is, I think, what we're talking about in the pre-hospital setting, we have set up an amazing system to where we're ensuring that we have those medications. And those medications are albuterol, tributaline, things like that are going to treat the symptoms that the patient is experiencing and give them every opportunity to survive the virus when they become in that really rare situation where they become extremely ill.
Thank you, Tiny. The second question, how can we stop the residents from other counties or states coming to use our trail system? Was at a gas station in Woodland Park, and there were people from Texas asking where they could ride their side-by-sides. Why can't we control the flow of traffic coming up the pass from the Springs? We as citizens of this county need to help from our officials. Please and thank you. I think that one's probably mine. Here's what I'll tell you. We are Teller County, and we want to protect our community. We are strong in our community, but we have to understand something. There's a lot of fear of the unknown, and I think the problem with the virus is, in a pandemic, it's the unknown. And you have to understand, we're all part of the United States as well. We're all part of one country, and we all love our country. And if we stop people from being able to drive on roads and go to our federal parks to get away from things, the way to stop coronavirus is really we as individuals keeping our distance, staying calm, and staying out of the area where we could get sick. If those people want to go to the Forest Service areas, I don't want to stop those folks from being able to travel. Once we stop people being able to travel, we may have residents that want to go to other counties. It wouldn't be fair if those counties shut off roads, stop and don't allow us into their grocery stores, don't want to allow us into their hospitals because it's their hospitals. Those are things we have to think about. And we have to really look at things from the human part of us that go, we still got to love each other. We still got to be kind to one another. And we still have to understand we each and all have the same rights that we did before this started now. And I think that's very important as we go forward. I think we have people in this community that want to go do fishing or maybe want to hunt if it was hunting season. And I think those are all things that you can social distance from. Riding a side-by-side on a Forest Service road in the hundreds and hundreds of miles that go out of Teller County into different areas, that's not exposing people to different other folks. It's still maintaining your social distancing. And I think that's important, that we still remember that we have to be love towards all of our folks out there and still be kind. So, next question. Nothing ever works when you want it to. When will supplies and test kits get to Woodland Park?
I wish we had the answer. We get supplies in daily. One of the things that our entire team and community did was we set up a buying team, and we went out and started buying necessary supplies that we could find almost a week ahead of any other county in our area. We also decided amongst ourselves that we would all contribute to a central supply cache, which includes everything from medications to PPE to the other critical supplies to keep our county ahead. Nobody is going to have enough PPE, not until things change drastically. The only thing that we can do is the concerted effort that we have put forth in our training, in our planning, and in our use of those limited resources to optimize that amount of supply that we have on hand. Now, we do continue to get small amounts of the strategic national stockpile. But let me give you an example. If we have 100 N95 masks, we get about 2 N95 masks from the strategic national stockpile. That's what's coming in. So our own abilities to control, train, work together, and be a team is what is carrying us forward. Thank you.
Can I play on that just for a second? Can I tell a story? I'm a storyteller. And one of the things that we really struggle with is the N95 masks. And that's the special respirators that the healthcare providers wear when they go out and provide care to ensure that it filters out the COVID virus. We knew early on, thanks to Don and his guidance and his leadership, that there wasn't going to be a huge supply of those masks coming in. And we had a member of the community, and I'm gonna call him out. His name was Brooks Dillahunta. And he's a retired paramedic, worked on a flight team in Haiti. And so he was used to kind of inventing his own things. And for weeks, he worked with his own 3D printer to actually make adapters and devices that would work on reusable N95 masks. And what I can say now is our community now has a decent supply of N95 masks that I am relatively confident will help get us through this pandemic. And to work with healthcare professionals that have the peace of mind that they're going to be respiratorily protected throughout this entire process, I think that's just one example of how Teller County is leading the way in this situation. And through leaders like Don and Dave Hansher and the sheriff and Greg Couch, because of these folks and their forward thinking, I just want to I'm going to use that story as an example of how their leadership is getting our community through this.
Thank you, James. So here's another question that James, you might be able to answer. For those with a primary doctor and those without a doctor, who do you call if you think you have symptoms? Is there a different protocol for each?
That's a fantastic question. So if you have your primary care physician, that should be who you reach out to first. So if you are fortunate enough to have a primary care doctor, please try and run your care through them. First and foremost, that relationship is very important, and we wouldn't want to interfere with that in any way. For folks who do not have a primary care doctor, my recommendation is, if it is a life-threatening emergency, and even if you have a primary care doctor, if it's a life-threatening emergency, please call 911, and we'll get you the help that you need. But if it's not a life-threatening emergency, what we ask that you do is leave the 911 resources for those who need us. Over the next few weeks, we do anticipate a significant increase in that demand and that need. So if it's not a life-threatening emergency and you don't have a primary care doctor, what I ask you to do is to reach out, go to the the Teller County COVID-19 website, and look for telehealth resources. And there is a list of telehealth resources on that site. And those include both televideo health and telephonic health services. So if you unfortunately if you're uninsured and you don't have anywhere else to turn, you can use the UC Health app, and there's a small fee to actually be able to access a primary care provider 24 hours a day through that service. And if you don't know where else to turn, they also have a free 7-day a week during, I think it's 12 hours a day. Don't quote me on the times, but UC Health also has a free nurse line that you can access to get information, advice on that.
Thank you. So I have another one for you. Can MAP now cover northern or southern Teller County with this COVID-19 crisis?
So I'm very pleased to announce that we have actually been working with Southwest Teller EMS, which is the ambulance service that covers the Cripple Creek area, to team up on MAP responses. So if you are in behavioral or substance use disorder crisis and you need help, you can call, regardless of where you are in Teller County, 24 hours a day. And you may initially get a Southwest Teller EMS ambulance, but they will rendezvous with us, and we'll make sure that you get those MAP services. And that is partially thanks to an amazing grant from a group called the Colorado Springs Health Foundation, which was funded through the cell of UC, the Memorial Hospital System.
Thank you. Lee, this one's for you. Is there help for parents needing to increase, this one's not for you, I was reading ahead. Is there help for parents needing to increase internet broadband for schooling when they have to pay to do that?
Yeah, I think I can take that one. I know that there are resources out there to provide internet for families that do not have that. I know that Xfinity has something, and I can't recall if it's completely free or if it's just a reduced cost. But pretty early on in this situation, Xfinity put some things out because we know that there are families out there that don't have access to the internet, and here we are doing virtual school when you need that. So my suggestion in that would be to look online. Again, it's as simple as Googling or searching free internet resources. But I can say confidently that Xfinity definitely has something available to families. Beyond Xfinity, I'm not sure, but I think you can. I think if you look online, you'll certainly find that. I spoke about those online learning apps. Just look for internet resources in the same way that you would do that.
Thank you.
I got a little bit a piece on that. Teller County is bandwidth challenged. I don't have much at my house, but from what I have read right now, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile are allowing folks that are subscribers to use their phone as a mobile hotspot for Wi-Fi. So we got more demand on it, but that is normally a fee that you have to pay additionally, but that has been waived for the present time in there. So there is, through the telephone system, some additional internet access for free to existing subscribers, Jason.
Thank you. And for those of you that don't know, I have somebody called Renee. And what I'm going to do is ask Renee to check on our local cell or local providers. And Renee, could you check on that and see what they would do for folks, and if we could post that on the tellercovid.com? Thank you. When you say we have an adequate supply of meds, are you referring to the combination of Z-Pak and hydroxychloroquine? I got that out all in one try, James.
So those are typically in-hospital medications, and I don't want to be evasive, but I also don't want to speak to something that I'm not super qualified to speak to. That would definitely be a question that we can look at our in-hospital partners, discuss it with them, and get back to you on. What I do know is that UC Health is our local partner. They've got the hospital up here, and they bring a significant supply chain to bear because they're such a large entity in this state.
And that's something, too, we can talk to Dr. DeWall about and try to get something on the site also. I would like to talk about something, though, with that. There have been reported cases in the United States of people attempting to use different chemicals from aquariums that say chloroquine on them. Here's the problem. When you take a medication that's not been given to you through a doctor, or you try to make a home remedy for something, there have been several deaths from that. And I think that's very important to understand. Self-medication on something that we don't understand can be just as deadly as a virus that you don't have medications for. So talk to your primary physicians, go through the telehealth, and talk to them about that before you attempt to try something at home. What is the number of COVID cases that Teller County is anticipating? And I think I can talk a little bit about that. We don't know. And here at the end of the day, we try to do all the planning. I and Dawn and Department of Public Health, Jackie, we talk about a lot of things with the county commissioners, with different members of all the leadership in our communities, Woodland Park, Cripple Creek, Victor. The problem is it could be all around us, or it may not be in the room with us. We just don't know where COVID is. And all the testing that's out there, there's not enough to test everyone. So we don't know the numbers. And that's why we prepare every day for the worst, expecting the best. And I think that's the most we can do to manage the crisis that we may have. And so understand, I'd love to answer your question, but we just don't know. How many ventilators do we in Teller County have on hand? I think this is another one. What I'll do is, Renee, can you pose that question to Dr. DeWall? Really, UC Health is the only one in the county with ventilators. So at this point, I don't know that I want to speak for them. I'd much rather pose that question to them, and we will get that posted on tellercovid.com. Although we haven't seen it, is Teller County considering contact tracing for its cases? And what I'd like to do is turn that over to Darlene from Department of Public Health. Or I can speak to it. Or Dawn Angel, would you like to take that one?
Yes. Any type of positive COVID test automatically triggers contact tracing through the Public Health Department. They are working diligently on every one of the cases. You're not going to know the complete demographics of any patient unless there's a need for us to reach out because we have a broken contact trail that is going to present an imminent health hazard. So, yes, we do contact tracing. We do that through the Public Health Department. Jackie Ravello and her staff has been very diligent to address that as quickly as possible.
You know, I'd like to say something about Department of Public Health. You know, here in Teller County, they're a very small department. They don't have a lot of people, but they have really done everything they can possibly do to give out the right information and to really get through those trace cases when they have them. And all I can do is applaud them for the work that they are doing. Next question. This one's for you, Lee. Is there a place to go for information about getting help paying rent?
To my knowledge right now, there is no specific place for help paying rent, but everybody is going to get that $1,200, $2,400, $500 for your children. So that'll go a little bit of a way. Many people are going to be owed tax refunds. Processing that will also get other cash to come in, but no help for paying the rent. But at the same time, landlords can't charge you a penalty or evict you right now. So you'll get behind on the rent, but there won't be a penalty. And the other part is there will be cash coming into most everybody's household. And again, if the businesses process those payroll protection program loans, even if you're staying at home, if you have not been let go, then your employer should be able to pay you. And for the employer, it's to keep existing people on payroll, to rehire people they have already had to let go and be able to pay them, and then to hire new additional people. So there should be some cash flow coming through that.
Thank you, Lee. This one's for Don. Is Don Angel coordinating with the Red Cross?
Yes, we do coordinate all our activities with all of our outside agency resources. Right now, we do not have a direct need for Red Cross. However, fire season is coming. Should we have evacuated residents, we do have the plan in place with Red Cross to address the types of care, services, and needs of Red Cross. But today, we do not have them on our front line as they are servicing many others. They are in our back pocket for the backup team as it comes forward, because I don't expend all my resources without the direct need. We keep some in reserve for every time something else comes up. So it's not just Red Cross, it's Salvation Army, it's all the other charitable groups that give across our nation to make us a much better nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Lee, I got you another one. Are Parents Plus loans included in student loans? They are loans offered to parents on behalf of a student in college.
If it is a federal loan, because there are private loans, but if it's a federal loan, then all of those are on hold until the end of September. Sallie Mae has taken over most of what used to be lending from individual banks. So we have some old loans that are still out there that were issued by private lenders, but most of it all now falls under the federal government and Sallie Mae.
Thank you, Lee. Are short-term rentals allowed in residential neighborhoods? How does this fit with travel restrictions with social distancing requirements? You know, on this one, what I may do is turn that over to the City of Woodland Park and to different communities within the county, because really that's a large question with a lot of different complicated answers, because it depends on whether the county has a restriction on, and what I think they're really going after is VRBOs. And does the city have those types of restrictions also, and even on short-term rentals? So Renee, could you take that one down? We'll try to answer that on our website. The next one is, should we all make our own masks and wear them when we go out? I will tell you that I just saw that Governor Polis may have just issued an order that you must wear a mask when you go out. So that does change things a little bit. And here's the thing I will tell you. Although the homemade masks are not medically advised for certifications, there just aren't a lot of masks out there. So it's not like you can go to your hardware stores and buy them. There's not like you can go anywhere else and get those. If you have those, wear them. If you have to have the homemade masks, wear them. quite honestly, we even have donations from our community coming into the homemade masks, and we don't turn them away. We bring those in to use for patients at healthcare locations to try to give an extra layer to folks. I think the other thing is, too, is at one time we had a box where everything kind of fit in. Well, what's happened is we've had to throw everything out of the box now and decide we got to come up with off-the-cuff decisions here on how we're going to deal with things. And like Don Angel talked about, the strategic supply is not what it used to be. We're using it, and we're using it quickly. And there's a lot in the news about 3M and different organizations that can't provide enough masks. So right now, I would say do whatever you can at this point to stay safe, protect others, and just be aware of what you're doing. Don, any other thoughts to that?
No, sir. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Throw the book away, write a new book, because after this, things are going to change.
So I did get an advisory from the Woodland Park School District, and I'd like to read that. So the public advisory is Woodland Park School District will post all locations to their website by Monday. And Renee, see if we can get a link to that so we can put it on ours as well. Unfortunately, some homes in our community cannot get internet service or mobile hotspot services. So families may need to drive to hotspot locations. And that's true. In a lot of our areas up here, we're a mountain community. There's not enough broadband or Wi-Fi sometimes in an area, and we tend to have to make do. So look for that for the Woodland Park School District to put that out to folks in our communities, and we'll try to get the word out for it.
Sheriff, I think you bring up a good point. Teller County does have some blessings. We all believe in social distancing, and that's why we're here.
Absolutely. Is there any place in Woodland Park or Teller County that are taking clothing donations? You know, I think right now the clothing donation centers are shut down for now. The other side of it too, and I know as a county, we've been taking a lot of things from people that are bringing them in. And what we'd like to do is identify the right equipment that we need for donations. Yep. So I'm glad it brought up the donations piece, because what happens is we tend to end up with a lot of donations that we're not able to use nor share right now because of social distancing. We can't get them out to people. And what we don't want to do is fill up our logistics bays with items that are unusable, because then also we have to track them, maintain them, and identify for the use of those things. And so what we're asking for is only items that are put on the Teller COVID site that request for needs on those would be the only things that are provided to us, only so that we can conserve space and time in the recording of such devices.
And manpower, PPE to go through it. I mean, sometimes it takes away from the good that was intended.
But thank you for all the donations we have received. How about, can you tell us more about what the Aspen Mine Community Partnership and Little Chapel are doing to support the community? Anyone want to take that one?
I can talk about the Aspen Mine. Okay. So up in Cripple Creek, Community of Caring, or the Aspen Mine Center, has been putting together food baskets. We have been overly generously donated stuff from the casinos when they had to close. So we were not only helping feed people that needed it, are in great desperate need for food help, but the community. It was, we had cases and cases and cases of lettuce and stuff that pretty much every community member in CCV came out and, we all were eating healthy for a while there. I think Aspen Mine Center is still accepting clothes. I thought that was on our website the other day. They are down to pretty much just a skeleton crew that's in the building right now. You can't get in the building. All of us providers that are out of Aspen Mine Center are all doing telehealth right now. And I know that you can still ask for help where it comes to utilities and that type of thing. I know that they still have some grants that they're working through that can help with utilities and that type of thing in Cripple Creek. But yeah, the Aspen Mine Center is absolutely still doing the food and stuff like that. Commodities, all of that is still up and running.
I'll add to that a little bit. I know Community Partnership there in Divide is also giving away a lot of food. I think they have become, at this point, the #1 place in our county for free food. So they're a great resource. They have a website. I don't have that in front of me, but that could be looked up easily. And the Little Pantry, or the Little Chapel Food Pantry there in Divide, is also giving away free food, I think, twice a month. I could guess, but I'm not going to say exactly when that is, but I think twice a month on Mondays, and that could be also looked up online.
Yeah, and I think that's so your best source for that information is at tellercovid.com. That site will identify when the food pickups are and the locations for those types of things.
Jason, can I add one more thing? The Aspen
Yes,
Mind
please.
Center is also delivering boxes of food and stuff like that to people over 65. There's a whole group of people that's all they do. And we have the little trolley that runs around Cripple Creek. Well, those drivers, because they know a lot of these community people anyway, they're the ones that are actually helping us deliver all of those boxes and stuff to the elderly.
Perfect. So, last question. I am the only senior working with younger employees in needed pet care. If I feel I'm at higher risk, is my job protected if I feel I should stay home?
What was the question?
I'll repeat this one. I am the only senior working with younger employees in a pet store, in pet care. If I feel I'm at higher risk, is my job protected if I feel I should stay home?
I'll touch some of that. The employer is able, if they do the payroll protection program, to pay people to stay at home. The whole idea is not to lose employees. So there will be some employers that take advantage of that, some that don't. But if your employer were to do that and you were to stay at home, then your employer would receive money to pay you because you feel you are more at risk. And that would probably be a discussion directly with your employer just to voice your concerns there.
Thank you, Lee. So in closing, I want to thank everybody on this stage for participating. I think it's important that we're able to get this information out to our community. And I want to talk about community, relationships, and partnerships before I close out. But what I want to do also is talk about a partnership we have with Caris and the great works for Andrew Womack's Ministries, for all the hard work they did in providing us this location and the ability to live stream this. To me, this was a lifesaver for us to be able to get this information out quickly and be able to live stream it so people can ask questions while we're at this panel. That's a very important thing. And for a community member to give us that ability, what a wonderful blessing in our community, and just everyone that is able to hear that message on a daily basis from the live streaming. So thank you very much.
Thank
I very
you.
much appreciate it. So in closing, I want to talk about the community and the partnership. So these partnerships with organizations throughout our community is what's really making this work for all of us get through this. So partnerships with the Community Partnership, Little Chapel, the Aspen Mine Center, the Walmarts, the Walgreens, the Venture Foods, all the different organizations in the county, the mine, all those folks that have brought so much to the table helping. What a wonderful community partnership that is. Community. When this occurred, I and Don and Jackie sat down and we identified very quickly that we can't do this on our own, even with all the first responders, the reserves, the posse members. We just didn't have enough people. We made one phone call. Well, one phone call to each group. But we reached out to our veteran organizations in the county. We reached out to our subdivisions in the county. We reached out to our faith-based community. And not one person questioned the need for something. What we did is we asked for them to provide to us volunteers who would be able to help us in the struggle against this pandemic. And those were people with medical backgrounds, security backgrounds, just backgrounds in being able to drive things places, to be runners. They provided those different groups, those community partnerships, to the tune of about 500 volunteers within 48 hours. That's pretty amazing for any community to do. And the respect of our office and our ability to move that many people to get that help was amazing. Why is that important? On any given day, you look around us and you see law enforcement that gets sick because our first responders, our EMS, our fire, our folks that are in the hospital working so hard. Where do we draw upon? Where's the strength? Even the military is now calling people back in that have been out many years because they need that help. Well, this community answered within 48 hours with lists and personnel to backfill us when that need arose. And when I say that need arose, it's because it's going to arise, right? So we, as leaders of this pandemic issue within the county, sat down and had to really project how are we going to deal with this in the next 48 hours, the next 7 days, the next week, the next month, the next 3 months, because we don't know. And we plan for the worst so that we can make it the best when it happens. And we can't do that without everyone here. The next thing is our relationships. Every day we go in and we deal with this in our family relationships. Even for first responders, there's a strain there for what we do because our wives and husbands and significant others deal with that on a daily basis. And it's such a need for us to understand and support them in what they do. But relationships outside, relationships that we've gained through working together for years with all the partners that you see here, all the talking heads that have talked today. You know, we respect each other, come together all the time. We're able to meet and understand the needs. Partnerships like the one we have with Karis and being able to make a phone call and see this set up. And their staff working with us to help us prepare those things. That's important. So I just want to finish up with, we termed the phrase tell her strong, and now it's a hashtag. So I think tell her strong means our community strong. And we work together on all aspects of what we do. And I just want to say thank you for our community. Thank you for the support of all things that we are doing. And we couldn't do it without you. And our community needs to know you are the first responders also. It's not just what you see on the streets. You as a community are part of that first responder group. And we appreciate you and want you with us. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.